Janome.
Hello everyone! Oh yes, it's time for another Janome's Magical Machine Mystery Tour. And what will we be talking about today? Well, it's always a mystery. And here I am. Hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's always wonderful to see you all. And yes, I'm back from my palatial estate here in Collingwood with my beautiful Marilyn for another Janome's Magical Machine Mystery Tour. And what will we be talking about today? Well, you know, there is so much with Janome. There's always more. Not only more machines, there's always so many machines coming out for every kind of sewer, every kind of budget, every kind of everything. There's always more, but you know, some of our machines, there's so much to them, then they definitely need more than one Magical Machine Mystery Tour visit. So today we will definitely revisit a machine I've already shown, but again, there's so much more. So we're going to reveal a little more about it today. And what machine is it? Well, let's flip back around to reveal on today's Janome's Magical Machine Mystery Tour. Ooh, ta-da! It's the fabulous Janome Continental M17. Look at that. Yes, now I've talked about the Continental M17 before on other Magical Machine Mystery Tour, but again, look at all that is included with the machine. So much included. So I thought that's what we would talk about a little bit today. What is all included? Now, I'm going to go really quickly through all of this because there is just so much. When people wonder about, the higher price tag of this top-of-the-line machine, there is so much added value into the machine. It is incredible. So this is a multifunctional machine. Again, sewing, quilting, embroidery, home deck, tote bags, whatever we want to do, we can do it on the CM17. For most regular sewing, most of the time we're going to be using, there are 3 needle plates included with the CM17, but we're going to be using this zigzag needle plate the most. Now, you see that it's got the 9mm wide opening here, so we refer to this as, again, the standard zigzag or even universal needle plate. We have many patented markings on the needle plate here to help you if you're a garment sewer, a quilter, whatever kind of sewing you want to do. So that's our regular zigzag needle plate, and we'll be using that most commonly with the regular A foot, the zigzag foot, again with that 9mm wide opening. Now, most of our Janome feet are snap-on feet, like the A foot is here. It just snaps onto the regular foot holder. There's a little black button here that releases the foot. And you'll see on this foot holder, it's very cool. Janome has a 9H, which means 9mm wide, and H for high shank. We also have some low shank machines, but this is a high shank. And to determine that, lay your foot down on the needle plate and then measure up to where that screw is to attach it onto the presser foot bar there, and that is the shank. If it's about 1/2 inch, it's low shank. If it's about 1 inch to 1.25 inches, it's high shank. So we know our CM17 9mm wide stitch width and H for high shank. So that's very cool. Now on this A zigzag foot here, did you know we've got this little black bar, and you'll see once we hit that little black button, there's a bar that comes across the back of the foot holder there that will lock this foot into place. And that's very helpful when you're stitching along, particularly if you're doing some hemming here. And again, when we've got that big hump in our jeans, we've got that big hump, so we can engage that little black button across the back of the foot holder to lock it into place. So that way, when we're sewing across this big hump there, the presser foot is staying level, so that's going to reduce the skip stitches, reduce the chance of breaking a needle, and then the black button will just release on its own. You just have to engage it. You don't have to hold it. It will release all on its own. Now, to help as well, if that hump is really big, we can use this button shank plate. There is a thinner side and a thicker side, and this is typically we're using this when we're sewing on a button on by machine, but this will also help us, again, keep the back of that presser foot level when we're going over that hump. When we're getting over the other side of the mountain there, we can spin around the button shank plate and put it in front, and that way it's going to help keep the foot level until we're going down that mountain. So little things like that black button and this button shank plate will definitely help you whatever kind of sewing you're doing. Now, did you know in this regular foot holder here, we can use things like our quilting guide bar. It's not just for our even feed foot, our AccuFeed flex foot. No, we can use it here in our regular foot holder. So we can use whatever kind of snap-in foot that we want. We can use it for, decorative stitches, or we could even do even rows of buttonhole stitches, all using that quilting guide bar in our regular foot holder. So there's so many things included with the CM17 and most Janome machines that are multifunctional. So with this regular foot holder though, then again, we've got all of these snap-on presser feet. And when we're a garment sewer, let's say, or even some home deck sewing, maybe we're going to use this D foot, and all Janome feet have our letter ends. This is the D foot, which is the rolled hem foot. So that beautiful, delicate rolled hem. Yes, we can do it on our serger, but oh, we can use it here with the D foot rolled hem foot. Isn't that beautiful? Do it for, ruffles on a garment or apron, or how about, some napkins for some home deck, isn't that beautiful? Now, we also have the E, the zipper foot, and we could move our needle to the right or to the left to sew on a zipper, again, for garment sewing or home deck. We've got the F foot, which is the satin stitch foot, and it's got the groove on the underside there. So all of the decorative stitches can form and pass through under the foot very easily. Again, because those decorative stitches are all raised up. So by having that groove in the satin stitch foot, they all go through underneath very easily. We've got the F2 foot, is the open toe foot, so there's no bar across the front, but we do have a little tick mark here to indicate the center of the foot. Now, this is particularly helpful when we're going to be doing the fabulous mirage stitches, which I've demonstrated in the Janome Continental Club Facebook group, all about how to create these mirage stitches. And you can use either your F2 foot or your regular F foot, because again, the F foot has that little red tick mark in the middle of the foot, or the F2 has that little tick mark in the middle of the foot as well, and that'll help line up for our fabulous mirage stitches. So we can use either of these feet, again, multi-purpose, no matter what kind of sewing we're doing. The G foot is a great foot to use. This is the blind hem foot, but I love moving my needle over to the left to 1.0. That'll move it to the left-hand side there, and I use this guide of the foot to guide my fabric, and I get perfect rows of edge stitching. Now, the intended purpose of this foot is, look at this beautiful blind hem. Now, if we used matching thread, then you would never see this hem, but this blind hem, use it in trousers, or how about curtains, hemming curtains, and there on the back side, you can adjust the width and the length and the position of the blind hem however you wish. So beautiful, so professional. Very simple and easy to do with that G foot, again, which is also a multifunctional foot. Now the M foot, this is a foot a lot like what is on your serger with those little stitch fingers. That helps support the stitches as they go across your fabric here to finish off the raw edge. Again, this foot mimics what a serger does, except it will not trim the fabric, but we've got many different over edge and over casting options in the CM17. So it will do the overcast and over edge stitches. They will stitch the seam and then go over and finish that raw edge so it won't be raveling. This stitch is great to use, particularly on really delicate fabrics. It's got that extra line of like zigzag in there, so there's no raveling. Now this is the traditional over edge stitch there. You'll see that thread running down the raw edge of the fabric there, just like you would find on a serger. There is going to be no raveling of this fabric at all, and it sews the seam and finishes the edge all in one step, again, just like a serger, except it's not trimming the fabric. So that is your M foot. Very wonderful foot. You don't have to drag out your serger all the time to finish off your seams. Now we also have the T foot, is the button sewing foot, and that's a great foot to use when you want to sew a button on by machine. It's got that little rubbery grip on the bottom. Just lay it over your button there. You'll see I like using the cellophane tape to hold down my button as I'm doing that zigzag. Now this is where if we needed a button with, again, depth, if you're sewing like on a wool coat, for example, and you need the button to have the shank built in to allow for that layer of fabric with the buttonhole. So again, we've got the button shank plate for a deeper side or slightly thinner side. So that's where you'd lay the button on top of the button shank plate, and then you would be sewing with your button foot on top of that to sew on your button. So again, multifunctional. Now, of course, with your buttons, we need a buttonhole. So here is your automatic buttonhole foot that we drop in our button here. It can sew up to an inch buttonhole automatically. And it's got the stabilizer plate, so we put our fabric, again, sandwiched in between. The stabilizer plate helps move the buttonhole foot around on the machine very easily. And there's so many buttonholes built into most Janome machines, so again, stitch them out. This is a little book cover that I'm making just to use some of the stitches, just to practice them. And again, so many built into the machine, so we can do buttonholes on, again, tote bags, garments, home deck, whatever. Now we have the Z foot, or the Z foot is the concealed zipper foot with the little channels underneath to do that perfect concealed or invisible zipper that no one will even know is there. Now you can go back to the A to Z with Janome series on the Janome HQ YouTube channel, and I did the Instagram live series A to Z with Janome. So again, all those videos on Janome HQ YouTube channel are going to be tall and skinny, but you will still see the demonstrations of all of these feet. When we're doing, again, garment sewing, we're going to do some darning. We've got the PDH darning foot here that hops around, or we've got the open toe version of the PDH darning foot. Now we can use these again for darning clothes, but we could also use these for free motion quilting because of that hopping foot nature. Now again, when we get into quilting, there's so many different feet we could use. When we get into piecing our quilts, for example, we could use the O foot, 1/4 of an inch foot with that guide on the side. We select the 1/4 of an inch stitch or move our needle over to the right, and we've got that guide to help line up the fabric. We can even use this guide, again, down the center line if we're doing half square triangles, for example, and that guide would go along that line. So we could even use it. It doesn't always have to be at the edge of the fabric. But if you don't like that guide, it gets in your way sometimes for those half square triangles, for example, use the O foot that does not have that guide. So you always have options. Now, a lot of times people love using this HP foot, which stands for high performance, that has the foot holder and the foot integrated, so there is no movement side to side. This is why this HP foot is the perfect 1/4 of an inch foot, because again, it is so accurate. So it's modeled after the industrial feet that they use in the garment industry. So again, it's a 1/4 of an inch, perfect. So people love using it for their piecing, so accurate. Great for top stitching though, around garments, and even any curves because it's all metal. So it easily gets in, great for tote bags, whatever you want to use it. Now we're going to use that HP foot with this HP needle plate specifically because it's going to orient our needle to the left-hand side when we snap it into the machine. So that's why we want to use this HP foot with the HP needle plate. That little center or that little hole there to the left is going to line up with that groove in the foot. So it's going to work out beautifully. Now make sure you use this HP bobbin cover with your HP needle plate. Don't interchange them in your various needle plates. They look very similar, but the markings on your HP needle plate bobbin cover are specific to your needle plate here, so don't interchange them. But we can use this HP needle plate for another foot as well, which I will show in just a minute. So that's typically for piecing. When we get into actually quilting, again, we could use the darning feet here, but we've also got the closed toe QC foot free motion quilting foot, or we've got the QO, free motion quilting foot, the open toe. We even have the clear view big dinner plate foot, that is the QV foot. Then this is great to use for, again, that free motion quilting, or when you want to do the variable zigzag with the knee lifter that's included in your machine. That variable zigzag is a very fun feature that you can use to create and quilt. I even used the variable zigzag on my binding here, just as a little bit of decorative element. So what variable zigzag is, you can go from just a straight line, and then using your knee lifter, you can go to a nice wide, even 9mm wide, and then taper it down into nothing. And then you can go wide, again, 9mm or a little smaller, using that knee lifter. And it all depends, the swing of the needle is dependent on how much pressure you put on that knee lifter. So that's a very fun function built into a lot of Janome machines. And again, we could use that clear view foot for that variable zigzag, or we could use the QZ foot, very low profile foot. There's hardly any foot there. So great swing to the needle. We can really see what we're doing to have fun with that variable zigzag. So that's actually into quilting, but of course, a big debut to the fabulous Janome Continental M17 was this ASR, Accurate Stitch Regulator. How perfect is that? So we can do our free motion quilting with stitch regulation. So this is the closed toe ASR QC, and we have the ASR QO. And it just snaps on place, the open toe there. And then we have the ASR QV, clear view foot there, that snaps on. So again, we could do a variable zigzag with the stitch regulation here because of the ASR stitch regulator. We just plug it into the machine. It's its own foot holder attached to the machine. It works out so well. I did a Janome Continental Club Facebook Live, which I've also loaded on the Janome HQ YouTube channel, so you can go back to watch that, all about the ASR, including the industry first ASR QR ruler foot. So yes, we could do ruler quilting that has that little divot in the front, so great visibility of our needle. So we could use rulers, even the 1/4 inch thick rulers, because of that higher profile of this foot. Those 1/4 inch thick long arm rulers we can use no problem because of the high shank of our machine. And again, just clips into the back of the machine so easy. With that power of the ASR, that's the stitch regulator in particular. So again, we could use stitch regulation for ruler quilting, but we also have the regular QR ruler foot, again with that little divot there for free motion. So you've got options. Use the QR ruler foot without stitch regulation, or use it with stitch regulation. It's up to you. Now, speaking of quilting, some other popular presser feet to use. Oh, the AccuFeed Flex Foot that will integrate here with the little clip. These foot holders, this is the dual and twin holder. It will clip into the upper feeding mechanism of the machine. And then the power of AccuFeed Flex. This is the AD foot. And there's the upper feeding here. So the even feed foot. So if we're doing quilting through multiple layers, we're stitching through tote bags, really thick layers, we're sewing knit fabrics, and we want to control the stretch, we can use this AccuFeed Flex dual holder, and this is the AD foot. And then, ooh, with the power of AccuFeed Flex, yes, we remove the AD foot, and maybe we want to put on the UD foot, the open toe foot. Now, a lot of people find it easier to first put on your AccuFeed Flex foot holder on your machine, and then you can snap on the feet because then you've got that foot holder already in place. So it's up to you. So that's the UD open toe foot, or again, we've got the, oh, this is the OD foot. Oops, and let me snap it into place. The OD foot here that has that guide on the side. So this is perfect for your 1/4 inch seam. You could use it for piecing or use it to sew on binding. And again, you've got that edge there to line up your fabric. Now we've also got the SD stitch in the ditch foot to use with that twin holder. This will, just like parting the seams, it will part your seam and then your needle follows up behind it, so you'll get perfect, accurate stitch in the ditch using that AccuFeed Flex SD foot. Now we also have the narrow AccuFeed Flex foot holder here, especially if you're into more smaller areas, you're sewing tote bags and you need something smaller, more slim profile. We've got the narrow AccuFeed Flex foot holder with the standard VD foot, but we can unclip that and attach the ED foot, which is the zipper foot. So now if you want to sew a zipper in knit fabrics, or again upholstery fabrics, thicker for your tote bags, you can move the needle over to the right or to the left with the ED foot with the single AccuFeed Flex holder. Works out so well. Now, as I mentioned earlier, with this HP needle plate that has the needle oriented to the left, we can use the HP2 professional grade AccuFeed Flex foot holder with that fabulous HP2 foot. So again, it's just like our regular HP foot, the same 1/4 inch markings there, but now we have with the power of AccuFeed. With the Continental M17 and with Continental M7, those machines have a special dedicated AccuFeed motor, so we can use almost every stitch in the machine with the power of AccuFeed. It works out so well. Now, I mentioned there are 3 needle plates included with the Continental M17. Again, the zigzag being the most commonly used, and then we also have that HP needle plate. But for free motion quilting, for ruler quilting, and even for embroidery, we recommend that straight stitch needle plate that has that center needle hole. Now, when you're doing your piecing, 1/4 inch piecing, again, we've got a hole here to the right. So we could use that 1/4 inch stitch to the right and use that O foot or the O foot with the guide to do our 1/4 inch piecing using this straight stitch needle plate. And we like using it for that. And again, quilting, ruler quilting, so we don't have to worry about the needle, punching the fabric down into the needle plate. Same for embroidery. We like using the straight stitch needle plate so we don't have to worry about the needle punching the fabric down into that zigzag needle plate opening. So we've got so many options depending on whatever kind of sewing you're doing. Now, when we are talking about regular sewing as well, we've got 2 bobbin holders with our machine. The standard one is 10 grams, as labeled here. This is for your CM17 and Continental M7. They're very specific bobbin holders because of the optic thread sensor that is here built into the machine. Then this is why we need that little hole here in the bobbin holder. So they're very specific bobbin holders to the CM7 and CM17 because of that optic magnifier that goes down in the, or the optic thread sensor that goes down in the bobbin area. Now, we also have another bobbin holder recommended for embroidery is 20 grams there. Now, most of our other embroidery machines, we have a little yellow triangle here, and we call it the yellow dot or high tension embroidery bobbin holder. Now, because Continental M7 and the Continental M17 are very specific machines, very special, this 20 gram higher tension bobbin holder has got a little white triangle instead of the usual yellow, but then that's why it's great to know 20 grams. This has a higher tension on it, so that way when we're embroidering and if we see our bobbin thread up on the surface, we can switch out to this higher tension bobbin holder that'll help pull those needle threads to the backside and we won't see them on the top. So for most regular sewing, and even for some embroidery, if you find, again, that you don't need that higher tension bobbin holder, go ahead and use the regular one. It's okay. So when I snap my needle plate in here into position, the other cool accessory that comes with the CM17 is this fabulous cloth guide. And look, it is basically the same length as my 13.5 inch throat space. So the cloth guide, very easily just to remove the bobbin cover. Again, it works with whatever needle plate you want to use. And I particularly love, it's got a little hole here so you can see your bobbin thread. You know how much bobbin thread you have. So it just snaps into place like that. And there is a great little ruled guide here. And this just slides along, and there's a little red mark here that indicates, oh, if you're a garment sewer and you're at 5/8 of an inch, you move that little red mark to the 5/8 inch and then lock it into place. This way, then your fabric can come up right up against, let's say there, I'm doing some hemming or again some seaming, your fabric comes right up against this edge. Now the cloth guide ends before the feed dogs, quite a bit before the feed dogs, so that means we can use even the big AccuFeed Flex foot holder. We could use any kind of foot holder we want in the machine, even again, an AccuFeed Flex foot holder, and we don't have to worry about the foot interfering with the cloth guide. So we could use any foot with this cloth guide. So that works out really good. If we're a quilter, and again, we're doing some 1/4 of an inch piecing, move the red mark over to 1/4 of an inch, lock it in. There's your 1/4 of an inch piecing, regardless of what foot you're using. You want that scant 1/4 of an inch. Oh, you just move over that red line slightly to the left, lock it back into place. Now you've achieved a scant 1/4 of an inch. It is so simple, so easy. Now, some other accessories included, oh yes, when I talked about embroidery, yes, our fabulous embroidery bobbin holder with that higher tension, but we've got many embroidery feet now. We're used to our regular P embroidery foot, but now we have the PC1 and PC2 embroidery feet. And oh, they each have, PC2 has a slightly bigger hole, PC1 has a slightly more narrow hole. And what we're going to use those 2 feet, PC1 or PC2, to do embroidery couching. And what embroidery couching is, very fun. Now, instead of using a zigzag stitch, as we typically do for couching, we can use a straight stitch in the embroidery hoop and do all these fun embroidery couching designs in the embroidery hoop built in to the machine using a variety of yarns. It's very fun. And part of the secret is this little attachment that are these little funnels, and you just basically clip in a strand of yarn. It can be thicker or thinner, just nothing too thick, like nothing too heavy. You don't want to use any, twine or anything too stiff. So there is my yarn very beautifully. Be careful, don't pull it too tight or you'll shred it like that. But this yarn can go through, and this way it keeps the yarn directly under the needle, and then we would put it through the hole of whichever foot there, and it's directly under the needle to do that yarn couching. Now this little cup holder goes over the needle clamp screw, so again it's going to keep the yarn directly under the needle. And then this little guy, very peculiar, is going to go way up. If any of you are familiar with The Friendly Giant, was a Canadian children's show. He always said, look up, look way up, since he was a giant. This little clip goes over the top of your telescoping thread mast there. So your yarn is going to loop over like that. So the yarn here on the right is just going to pool on the table, and then it's going to go over this clip, and then it's going to come down to that little cup holder to hold it into place. So then you can do your yarn couching. So that's very cool. Something else brand new, that PC or that PM precision marker embroidery foot. Now this will clip into the back of the machine just like your accurate stitch regulator, and then it's got a laser light, right there, a laser light that will shine down to help you with your embroidery placement. Great if you break a thread and you want to back up your stitches, it'll go exactly to where you need it. So this PM precision marker is brand new for the Continental M17. It is fabulous. Now, some other fabulous things that you're going to use for great success of your machine. Oh, things like, oh yes, the screwdriver that attaches our foot holders. We love holding them up here on the magnets. We have a little vial of cleaner. This is not oil, it's cleaner. It's specifically paraffin distillate. And what we're going to do is put this on a little rag. I love using the t-shirts rags since they've been washed a lot. There's very little lint, and you put it on the t-shirt rag, and then you rub it all over your bobbin holder and then down in your bobbin area as well. So then you get away all the lint. It'll really help your stitching stay nice and beautiful. I wrote a blog on Janome Life that says, don't forget the bobbin area. And there's a little video of me cleaning the bobbin area and making it all beautiful. And in fact, we'll use the little brush there to wipe out all the bobbin lint and everything to keep it good. Speaking of bobbins, yes, we have 5 Janome J bobbins included with the CM17. There is a little J here on the post, and we know that that means there's a rubberized compound, believe it or not, in this bobbin. And the rubberized compound helps quiet the bobbin so it's not excessively noisy in your machine. It also helps avoid the bird's nest and the backlash when you're sewing at like 1,300 stitches per minute of our CM17 or 1,200 stitches for embroidery per minute. When we want to stop sewing and stop embroidery, then that bobbin is going to stop. It's not going to continue to spin. So that's why it's great to use these Janome J bobbins specifically because of that rubberized compound. Now, Janome bobbins are class 15 size, so at least if you're going to use other non-Janome bobbins, make sure they're at least the same size. Now, included in your CM17 are 6 spool caps, and using the correct spool cap will definitely help your stitching stay beautiful. Now you can see with these big spool caps here, I even like inverting them sometimes. With these smaller spools, I like inverting them so then they help reduce the depth of the spool pin here, so we don't have to worry about the thread wrapping around the spool pin. But even then, this is fine for regular thread, but especially when it gets into that monofilament thread or more difficult to use thread, that's when I like to invert this spool cap like that. But I'm still going to top off this spool with that bigger spool cap, and then you'll see as the thread comes off, oh look, it just spins around that spool cap. It's not going to get caught on the spool itself, and it's not going to get caught around that spool pin. So we're going to have much easier results when we're stitching. Now, when we have the medium size spool caps, 2 of them, and they're great for like these mini king cones, for example. This is our iris cotton quilting thread. So then that was good to use. And again, that's going to keep the thread from getting caught on the spool and specifically not getting caught on the spool pin. So that's great. We've got 2 of these special spool caps here. Now, sometimes I see them put on like that as if it's a little crown, but actually it goes into the spool like this, where it goes into, again, a very special spools. That's why it's the special spool cap. And there's 2 of them, but again, it actually goes in like that to, again, avoid the spool from spinning or avoid this thread from being wrapped around the spool pin. And now also included, which will help, these difficult to use threads. Some of them can really be quite challenging. Again, monofilament, or this is a holographic thread. It's basically like a slice of mylar. It's not even real thread. So to use these thread nets, there's 2 included with the CM17. Just tuck it in around the bottom of the spool like that and put it on the spool pin. And that way the thread is going to stay coming off the top of the spool. It's not going to get wrapped around the bottom of the spool, and this way you're going to have way less thread breakage. It'll come off so much easier. So any, again, monofilament threads, some metallic threads, some of this mylar thread, again, it will work out so easier using those thread nets. Now also we could use, these big giant cones on our CM17. These spool pins are spaced farther apart so we can use big cones like this. And we also have 2 of these cone adapters. So they just go over the spool pin and put the cone on like that. It works out so well, so the cone's not going to, spin around. it works out really, really good. So basically any kind of thread we want to use on our CM17, we can. We just need little tips and tricks, like again, using our thread nets or our correct spool cap, and then we will have no problem. Now, lastly, and I know I'm running over my time, but lastly included, we've got that fabulous accessory case. So all of your goodies can fit in here. And oh, we even have a pack of needles and everything that you need to get started, minus some fabric. Chances are you have some. So everything you need to get started with your machine is included. But also I wanted to show, I guess I'll do this. I wanted to show that, yes, we have these fabulous hoops in this beautiful dust cover here. So with this very strong hook and loop tape, we can lift it up. A great spot to keep all of your manuals, to keep all the little pieces of paper that came with your machine, all your little guides, your quick start guide, your warranty. Keep it all in the pockets of your dust cover here. Oh, we even have room for the fabulous embroidery hoops, all of which have this quick release clamp system. They all clip into the embroidery carriage in a new way, something new for Janome because it's an entirely new embroidery carriage. But yes, we've got all of our 5 hoops can fit into this dust cover. When I spin it around like this, oh look, there's even more. That giant RE46D hoop, that 11-inch 18.2 hoop even fits in this dust cover. There's a big hook and loop strap there to hold it in. So that is fabulous. Everything you need with your machine, you can keep handy. And for sure, one of the first things you want to do when you get your machine, is to look for this piece of paper. This has all the parts and pieces included with your machine, all the accessories, the names of them, even the parts numbers. So that way you know what is included in your machine. Look at that gorgeous cloth guide, everything included in your machine. So you know it's there, and then it'll tell you what everything is. Things like, yes, this fabulous quilting attachment kit. And in this kit, there's more. We have, a box of, we have multiple stabilizers included with the machine. There is this whole roll of different types and different sizes of stabilizer. So then you know exactly what you need to cut for your various embroidery hoops. We've got a spool of the bobbin thread, which I love, from Janome, the 90-weight bobbin thread. We're going to use that large spool cap with this when we go to wind it off. We have the Artistic Digitizer Junior software. Make sure you go to the Artistic Digitizer Facebook group to join, and you can see how to use your Artistic Digitizer Junior software. And go to Janome Life blog. We've written lots of blogs about the software. And you can answer or ask questions in the Facebook group as well. This is your big AccuFeed quilting hoop with that special hard acrylic template here that will help kind of squash down your batting as you're positioning your quilt over the big magnet strips here and clamp it down. That way you can do quilting in your embroidery hoop and then remove the clamps and move your fabric out of the way. It works out so well. It is so convenient. So everything you need to get started doing your sewing, quilting, whatever you want to do, you can do it here in your fabulous Janome Continental M17. So thank you everyone for joining me today. I know that was a huge whirlwind and I know I went over my time, but there's so much in the fabulous Janome Continental M17. So make sure you visit your Janome dealer and get a test drive and you practice that accurate stitch regulator. It's fabulous. Make sure you check out all the videos that are on the Janome HQ YouTube channel about the CM17. Check out Janome Life blog. There's there's definitely going to be more. There's always more with Janome, and specifically with the Continental M17. So thank you so much for joining me. Have a fabulous day. Bye.